about myself. My name is Nancy Lambert. Again, I've been with Parasoft for about 10 years. I'm a project manager, and I've been using church software since 2000. We switched over to Logos, and I became a consultant for them and then worked for them in support, and then Parasoft bought us. And so I have many, many years in that. In the meantime, I did at some point quit my job at church as the bookkeeper, and then 3 years later really did quit because I hired two people that if you're doing bookkeeping, you know I spent more time fixing everything she did wrong in the month than it took me to do the books in the month. So I just said, please just let me do this, because I was the treasurer and I was constantly fixing everything wrong. So I have a lot of experience working in a church office and with all the idiosyncrasies that we have with working with church people. And now I work with diocese, and that's even a whole nother realm, right? So what we're going to talk about today is getting the data you need from ledgers and payables. Some of what I'm going to talk about, Bob touched on it. I'm going to go a little different direction. I'm not going to go into the program as he did. Hopefully you'll be able to see much better with this than you could before. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the dashboard, because what we're talking about today is how you can get what you need out. I see some priests here. There may be some finance council people here that aren't doing the everyday writing checks, doing the bank reconciliation, but you want the information you need to get out of the program without having to ask somebody. Obviously right now, we have people who are working from home, working in the office, working at different hours, and so you can't always just walk up and go, hey, can you grab me this report? And let me tell you, there's nothing more annoying when you're doing payroll than somebody walking in and needing something right now because you're doing payroll. My mother-in-law, who just turned 103, I know, and is still, you think she was 85, in her assisted living place where she lives, there's a sign on the door of the manager's office that says, doing payroll, do not disturb. So you know, because it's so easy to mess that up. How many have had like IRS walk in on them and come to their door? I have. That was fun. We switched to a payroll service, and I knew we were like, it was a full service, so then we were being filed under their EIN number. I knew that they didn't tell IRS. I just had that thing. So they show up at the door and everybody's freaking out. I'm like, no, I know why they're not here, why they're here. Because the payroll company we used never switched over to say we're now using them instead of our EIN. Anyway, I switched back. But so we're going to talk about the find feature, memorize transactions a little bit differently, a little more than what Bob did, and then memorize reports, which is really helpful, and I'll talk about why. Projects and reporting. If you're not using projects, there's some great tips and tricks, and then some other reporting tools you may or may not be familiar with. So with the dashboard, yeah, you can see that a little bit better. You'll notice the first thing that happens when you log into the accounting program is you have your dashboard, and it's going to give you like the information you need. Everything on this dashboard that's hyperlinked is, or that's underlined, is hyperlinked to something else. So what's really cool is you can click on either the amount, the vendor name, or the date. I think that's a check number. Yeah, due date. It's the due date. And it's going to take you right to that transaction. Now this is a transaction here that has not been paid. So if you realize, oh, I need to put this week's or this month's Verizon bill in a different account, maybe you added a new account, you're able to just hyperlink and get that changed before it gets sent. It's also really a great thing because when you're back here on the dashboard, whoops, you can see what's due. So maybe you have somebody that does the data entry, but you print the checks and you want to go in there and make sure they're all done right. You can just come in here and click it, and then you can look at it and then go back and click to the next one and verify that everything is accurate. Because like I said, when I did it, I was always cleaning up what the person who was doing the work had done wrong. And it's much harder once you've charged a bill and you've cut the check. You know, then you have to go in and do a journal entry to move it from one expense to the other, and then the auditor's like, why did you do that? You know, this way it's done, so it's much easier. On our dashboard, so everything, like I said, is hyperlinked, and you can even, on the far right, you can see our support information. You can email our support team from here. You don't have to open up your email. You can click that hyperlink. You can go into our knowledge-based articles in support, which Christina's going to talk about during lunch. a little bit about our Pathfinder and support, you can go into videos, because embedded throughout the whole accounting program, this is not the case in Family Suite yet, you can click on video in the top right that tells you what to do on that page. This will take you to our whole video series, so you can go there. You can also click on the link for your W-2s, your 1099s, your checks. If you need to print or purchase those blank ones for your program, in Parasoft they're already pre-formatted for our program. So you go into our check vendor and you can purchase everything from there. So we've tried to make it really easy to give you links and things with the hyperlinks of where you want to go. So it's really quick to navigate, and again, to find the things you need right away, you just log in, and a lot of it's right here on this page. One of the other things you may notice in the bottom right-hand corner, now a lot of times these are blank. One of them says news and one says messages. So the news may come from the diocese. So the diocese may log in and say, hey, don't forget your quarterly 941s are due next week, or don't forget your monthly payments, or whatever. They can send you guys a message. That's important. On the right-hand side, it also, that's the messages, sorry, on the right. On the left is news from us. We're going to send you information like our end of year, you know, every year at the end of year we have a live webinar you guys can go to remind you how to do the W-2s and everything, because we do them once a year, so that stuff's not stuck in your brain until you've done it for many, many years. So keep an eye on those. It's not just fluff. We're not going to say, hey, Dairy Queen has a sale here, you know, or whatever. It's going to be important things. So make sure you look at those. There may be a hyperlink in there. Some good information for getting the things you need. Well, yeah, sometimes maybe you need the Dairy Queen sale.
How did you get to that page?
So that's on, when you get to the, come on, back up. This is the dashboard. So when you log into the accounting program, that's what it should open up to, is your dashboard. How many have ever used the Find feature? A few of you. The Find feature is a really great feature for you to quickly find an account, a deposit, a check that's been paid, something that's due. You just go in and you use Find. Now in all of our screens, you can see here, I guess the red dot doesn't show up on these TVs. Didn't know that. When you're here, this is a Find journal entry. You have Find check and then Find a bill. So whenever you go into any of these screens, there's a little Find. And each Find screen is a little bit different. This is our check search screen. Maybe you know the transaction number or the check number. Maybe you know the date range. I knew they paid this bill a couple weeks ago. I don't remember the vendor, but you know, as soon as you see the list, you're going to remember. Say maybe you know the account, the vendor, whatever. Then it's going to bring up, once it sorts, and you can click go, and you can be taken directly to that paid check. Again, it's a super quick way to find what you need without having to ask somebody, especially if you don't really know the details, but you need to narrow down your search until you can find what you want. Your deposit slips the same way. If you want to find a specific deposit, they're going to list here, so you can go straight to that deposit. Maybe you're not sure if the deposit from Sunday was done. You can put in your date range and you can look to see if it's already posted or finished within your system, or you just want to see what Sunday's deposit was. You don't have to ask anybody. You can go right into the accounting program and see it. Any questions on the Find before I go? Yes?
Just a suggestion on the Find for like the bills, it'd be great to have the invoice number from the vendor, because
A lot of times that's in a memo field or in an invoice field, yeah.
there's an invoice field, but it's not on the Find
Yeah,
page.
yeah.
As I go in and then I'm looking for the amount, you know, I want to just see if that's...
Which invoice?
if it's
Yeah.
the same invoice.
So that's a great suggestion. I don't know how they determine those things, but certainly if you want to send that to accounting, you can send it to support@parasoft.com, and in the subject line, put enhancement request, and they can put that in there. Sometimes things are easy, sometimes they're not. You know, I'm not a developer.
Long time.
Yeah, well, you know, it depends on what it is. Sometimes they're like, oh yeah, we can add that, no big deal. Other times they're like, no, it's attached to too many things. And You know, the back end of this is like cobwebs probably, so you don't know how it's all attached. All right, so I know Bob went over memorized transactions and reports, but again, we're looking at this from how can you find what you need. So your memorized transactions are here on your dashboard as well. And these are your memorized templates, okay? And these are the ones that are due next. So when I took this screenshot, it was the middle of September. So that's going to show you the bills that are due in the next period, the next week. It may be, I think it's the next month. And it's really nice. Again, you have your hyperlink under bills, so you can click on that and look at it. But it's easy to see what's coming up. Maybe you want to look in there and see what your checking account balance is, which, you know, 96,000, that's a pretty healthy checking account, right? But maybe yours is 4,000. You want to see what's coming up, and you want to make sure you have enough cash to cover what's coming up. This is a great way to see it. When you're in memorized transactions, you're going to go in there and you've got multiple memorized transaction areas. You've got bills, credit cards, deposit, and journal entries. So you can memorize any transaction that you're going to need to make within the program. What are some things you might use memorized transactions for? I think you had some ideas, right?
Yeah, we pay to the diocese every month.
Mm-hmm.
And then we pay the utility bill every month. Then we pay, the phone bill every month.
Right.
So things like that can be.
I used to use it.
Most of the time those amounts are the same.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes they increase, then we can change it. So,
Sure.
and then as soon as you click on the vendor name, it immediately says, hey, it is on the memorized. You want to go to the numbers? Okay.
Yeah, so then it double checks you to make sure you don't put in an invoice that has a memorized, which is really helpful. I used to use this memorized transactions for our lawn maintenance person because he would give me a bill, but it was like the 15th of the month and I wanted to pay it on the 1st of the month because that's when we had the more money. And so I would just put it in the memorized because it is the same every month. We would pay missionaries every month. We would send a stipend to a missionary every month. We would use it for that. Our monthly property insurance bill, that's usually always the same because they would charge us like, they'd bill us over 10 months, which I hated, because then you'd get a 2-month bill, which was a lot of money, and that was always hard. But then you could just put in that every month and you didn't forget about it. And I did that one because when I started as the bookkeeper, I got a call a year and a half after I started from our insurance company. Funny enough, it was called Church Insurance. They hadn't billed us in a year and a half. And because I hadn't been the bookkeeper that long, I didn't know to miss it, right? So they were like, so you owe us $65,000 right now. Whoa. I said, you didn't bill me, I didn't use it, can't we call it even? They didn't like that. So we had to then set up additional payments on top of starting the new payments for the bills we'd missed. So having it in a memorized means you're not going to necessarily forget it, because if you forget a bill, and then 3 months later they come back and go, oh, you owe us $6,500. You know, for some parishes, that's no big deal, you just write a check. For other parishes,
finance charges.
Sure, and for other parishes, that may be your whole month's income. And so it's very difficult. So you want to make sure that the things you're paying regularly on the same amount. It also saves you time and keystrokes. You don't have to go in and enter the vendor and enter the account. And even if it's, like Bob was saying, you can memorize the account for that vendor, it's just less work. And we're all into that. So you're going to create your memorized transaction, which is like a template, basically is what it is. And when you go in there, the one we've got, that's your memorized bills pay. So you can see I've got Geek Squad, a couple of rents, and a cell phone bill. So probably cell phone bill is, maybe it's always different. But this way then you can just submit them. You can cancel and go back out. You can click on one and go to the next one, and you can sort by next due date. When are they due next? And so that way you can keep up with them. It makes it super easy to keep up. So when you're entering a bill, like Bob was saying, you're going to then at the bottom click memorize transaction, which means, okay, this is a bill I'm going to pay every month. So you start it with the initial payment, and then you're going to put when it's due next. So you can see here you're going to create when it's due next, and then you're going to come in here and create that memorized transaction. So it's pretty self-explanatory when you go in there. You don't have to, try to figure it out. We've tried to make it as simple as possible. And again, it's going to track your ongoing items. And for you, if you want to just go see what's coming up, those are going to be there even though, so you don't have to wait for somebody to enter the bills in. These are memorized so you know they're there. So you've got some memorized reporting, and it's a great way to get the information you need, again, on a regular basis. So memorized reporting is different from memorized bills, right? Or deposits or transactions. You can set up a group of memorized reports. So then that way, you can just go in and click on your report, the memorized group. You've got 5 groups here. So one of these is monthly reports. So you could go in there at any time. You don't have to ask the bookkeeper or whoever's doing the work. You click on memorized reports, send it, and you get your list of reports for your finance council meeting. End of the year, replication group, how to order. These are just funny names. This is a test data set that other people are in, so who knows what these names are. But instead of having it, you know how Bob was showing you how to set up the report and pick the accounts and pick the sort. So you don't have to do that every time. Once you're done, this is my beautiful, perfect report. You hit memorize at the bottom. You can either put it to an existing, which I go into that. So you start with your report. You build your beautiful report that you love. And then you click memorized at the bottom. And then you give it a report name. You can choose an existing group or call it Father Ty. That's what I thought. I'm like, of course I picked the one name that's hard in the room. So you could say Father Ty. These are his reports. It's whatever he wants, and you can put him in your group. You can run him anytime you want. And
Timothy is easier.
Timothy, Father Timothy, there you go. So do you guys use memorized reporting? He's asking you.
No, because we only ever run it, like I only ever run it for the financial council, so I really have no reason to change it, and it always does it the same, so it must be memorized. It was set up before.
Yeah, so good point. So one of the keys to memorized reporting,
Even if you don't memorize, but if you choose those columns that you need, that stays.
Oh, they stay.
Yeah.
So that must be what it
Every
is.
month,
Yeah.
well, what's nice about the memorized reports is you can put multiple reports in there. So you can put your bills due, you can put your check register, your balance sheet, whatever, all into memorized, so you get every report with one click or 2 clicks, because you can pick. Once you go in there, then you can pick you want them in PDF, preview, whatever.
Those are okay for big parishes where they are every day paying bills, or like our small parishes, we have only 2 days in a month we pay. One is the payroll and the other one is the utility bills in the middle of the month according to the due date. We wait for all the bills and pay because we hardly have somebody working 5 days, 8 hours a day. So we
Yeah.
once a week or once a month somebody comes to visit.
Sure.
That'd be helpful though, just in case, just to make sure you remember things. Even if it's
So you remember, exactly. Yeah, so you make sure you're running all the reports you need, because you want your finance council or whatever meeting you're going to always have the same consistency in reports, so that they can go back and, because they're going to bring last month's report or 2 months ago, and they're going to go, well, 2 months ago we saw it this way, and now we're seeing it this way. They don't like it when you change their reports, right? So.
Like change at all.
Well, no, they're church people. Nobody likes change. A good example, the new offering. It's change. Nobody likes change. So it's really important to be able to be consistent too, because you want your people to be able to see things, right? Month to month, whatever, every time they need it. So let's go back a little bit. So one of the things with memorized reporting, when you're setting up your memorized report, you want to use not a date range. Because if you use a date range, then you have to go in and always change that date range. Because you don't always want to give them October unless they never look at the reports. And when I started as the bookkeeper, we moved over to the new software, and I didn't know really how to set it up. I'd been out of, I have a degree in accounting, but I'd been a mom for 10 years, and I didn't remember how to do all that. And I just set up the chart the way she had it set up in the old software. I was giving them every month an unbalanced balance sheet because I had assets, and liabilities because I didn't have my numbering right. But I didn't know how to fix it. We had a CPA as the treasurer. He never said a word. So when I went to a Logos training, because that was the software we were using, I went, oh, that's what I did wrong. I came back and changed it. He retired as treasurer, and I said, please let me be treasurer. They did. Because I was like, he looked at it for a year and a half and never came to me and said, Nancy, why is the balance sheet not in balance? I mean, it was if you added them up, but why is it formatted wrong? I don't think he ever looked at it. So all that to say, when you have it memorized, then it's consistent, and you put it in the date range. You can say last month. Most people do it for last month or last year or this quarter kind of thing. And that way it just saves, again, so it's consistently run. All right, so I know Bob asked about projects. How many of you use projects in accounting? What do you use them for?
We have a organization that runs their year from July to June, and our fiscal year is January to December.
Okay. So you
Simplifies the reporting across our fiscal year.
Okay, because projects never close out. So projects are a great way to keep track of things that may go over your calendar fiscal year, whatever you're in, or that you want to constantly keep a balance on. Some people use projects for, let's say, a fall event. Well, sometimes you start purchasing or securing your vendors after your last fall event. So you have a fall party. I remember when we did this, we used to have a huge Halloween big thing. We had acrobats and all kinds of junk. And we had to, when they left, we had to pay them, and then within the next few weeks, we had to pay them again the deposit for next year. Well, I didn't want both of those expenses in the same year, so you can put it with a project, so then you can know how much each year's fall festival cost based on the project, not the duration or not when it was paid, and then it never goes to zero. Great for your youth, children's ministry, if you have a women's ministry, men, whatever, Knights of Columbus, they can be used as a project. It also keeps you from adding more to your chart of accounts. So you could have a chart of accounts that says your account could be fundraising, and underneath it could be Knights of Columbus, and then underneath that it can say fish fry for Easter, and then maybe they do a summer spaghetti dinner, and in the fall maybe they do the dunking booth, dunk the priest for 5 cents to throw the ball and it dunks whoever, or the deacons,
But the Knights of Columbus is not a good example because they are directly in control with the state, so they don't share.
Oh, theirs are different, okay. But if they did, you had groups like that, you could easily be able to set up a project for that. So it's very helpful to use project. It's a way to expand your chart of accounts without adding more to your chart of accounts.
So if you do like parking lot maintenance, would that be a project kind of?
Could be, if maybe you have a building maintenance account and you want to know how much you've spent on the parking lot or landscaping or.
So the guys who will match at 5% or 10% certain monies you raise new to make improvements. And they could be on a different project.
Yes. So you could have the income account as maintenance or whatever, and the person says, I want this to go to the parking lot and I want this much to go to the landscaping, and then you could put it in those projects when you're posting.
Okay, but how about, I think I just put it in the comments.
And that's fine. You can't really, it's a little harder to run a report on. With a project, you can do income and expenses.
Say for example, we work like 5 years ago, we did a project of, say for example, changing the carpet. So we had a bid come in, and then we selected a bid, and then so we paid the account. 5 years later, we want to redo or see how much we spent. Would
Right.
that work in this?
Because you could pull the project for carpet 2015,
or shingling.
whatever, new roof. It makes it easier because sometimes you're dealing with multiple vendors and you have multiple incomes and you don't want to have to go, I mean, I've done that, where you go back and you go, oh, we want to replace the carpet and we really like that guy. Who did the carpet? Or you're new and you don't know who did the carpet and the priest knew. Nobody knows who did the carpet, but you'd like to kind of use that guy because you liked the job. You heard some deacon said he was great. We love this guy. You know, we want to use this guy. You can pull up that project.
That will help, you know, when we transition, priest change. And a lot of times the parishioners don't know, we don't know. It was done a long time
Sure,
ago.
sure.
So if that is available, we
Yeah.
can see.
Who's the IT guy? I don't know. Who did we use for IT? I don't know. That's always scary, but you could go back and, I mean, you probably wouldn't do that under projects. You could do that under the account, but you could use projects for that. But for purposes of getting the information, if you wanted to see information on a project, you would go up here on the top left, you would go onto setup. Well, first you have to set up your projects. And you have a project group and then a project itself. So project group could be fundraising, and then the projects themselves could be, you know, children's ministry, youth, women, carpet, roof, whatever.
What's that say up there in the yellow on the?
On the top right, it's setup. So that's where you go to add your projects. But again, you start with a group. So there's 2 tiers to a project. So you could look at youth for the project group, or you could look at the detail for each of the youth projects underneath it. So when you come in here, like with everything, you have a quick find. So you could look to see if there was a project already or a project group, because that's where you're going to start. And I'm going to put Knights of Columbus here, because that's one of our project groups. And you can see then the projects they have below them here, which we have fish fry, Tootsie Rolls, and windows. Yes, this Knights of Columbus group likes Tootsie Rolls. I don't know. Again, this is a pre-set up database. So you can see what each of those projects are, and you can go, oh, fish fry, well, they're going to do a summer spaghetti dinner, right? And so you can add that as a new one by putting in, you wouldn't put it in here, but this would show you the projects under that project group. When you want to add a project, you would go into the project and you can put in the description. You have a project code. You can always give it a code. You can have a budget on a project, which is really nice, again, for carpet or roof or whatever. You can have a project budget which is outside of your regular budget. So that way you can see, did we get the revenue? Did we get the cost? Did it do what we want it to do? How much did Fall Festival really cost us? We wanted to spend $10,000 and we spent 15. Maybe we need to cut back, or maybe we need to have a more realistic, you know, again, when I started as the bookkeeper, they were like, well, how much did everything cost? Well, the priest there before me, and the new priest, he didn't like to, he was from the corporate world. He didn't like to go over budget. So if they started to get low, like one example was stamps, back in the day when we mailed everything, right? This is a long time ago. If in October they ran out of the budget for stamps, she would just put it under supplies. So I told the council, I said, I don't know what anything costs until I do the book work for the next year. And I will book it where it belongs, not based on the budget, because he was a stickler about never going over the budget. Well, then you never knew how much you spent for anything, because as soon as your budget was used up, she just spent it somewhere else. So, yeah, that's like bookkeeping 101, don't, right? So, you know, you want to keep up with your revenue and cost budget. And again, these carry over from years. You know, your budget zeroes out at the end of the year and starts new, not your project budgets. So they can go on for years and years, however you want to do that. So it's very simple. If you need to add an item to a project, you would just choose over here on the left, on the right, my left, your right. You would choose the project you want it to go to. What's again really nice is, let's say I was paying Jim Nelson, and I was paying him for the fish fry, but I was also paying him for this month's Wednesday dinner, which was a different account. It's not a project. I can do that. I don't have to put everything to a project. and I don't have to pay that separately. So if I was paying Jim $100 for the fish fry and $100 for Wednesday night supper that doesn't have a project, I can do that. It's very easy. So projects is not a required field or an unrequired field, right? So you can mix it up, which is helpful when you're paying your bills.
So is there a way to get a list of all the projects you have?
So it's funny you asked that, because my next slide says, how do you get the information of what you have in the system or what your projects are? So again, under reports, you come down here under transactions and you go to your project report. In your project report, you're going to, now the one I picked was for all projects, so you can see the project group and the project name, and then you get a full picture of that project. So you can see, these are just summaries, right? They're not details. So you can see total revenue, cost, revenue budget, cost budget, revenue difference, and cost difference. So it just gives you a summary overview of each project, and you can kind of see here, we have 2 projects listed. And it has a date range for that. So it makes it real simple. But you can also, under statements, you've got a project summary. So you have 2, one under transactions and one under statements. They're kind of at the bottom. This is going to be a higher level because it doesn't give you all of the budget so much. But again, it lists everything. So you can get a really nice picture of all your projects in one without so much detail. So that's really nice for the organization. You can also filter your reports when you run them by project. So if you just wanted the missions for the mission board meeting, you could filter that just for that project. So you don't have to give the mission board every project you have. You can filter it down when you're running the report, like Bob was showing you how to do that. One of the newer features that we're doing right now is we're adding an export to Excel in all of our reports. It's taken a little time because they do a little bit. We do releases now every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, some more reports are added to the ability to export in Excel. How many of you have done that? It's fairly new. No. It's really nice because it is going to take your file and bring it into a flat file. So it takes your data from your report and it's just data. It's not any formatting or anything fluffy or anything pretty, but it takes your data of your account code, shortcut, description, all that, whatever was in the report I ran. And what's nice is you can take it in there. Now I'm able then to go in there and create a really quick revenue chart in Excel. With Excel, you can choose the fields you want, hit chart, you've got a chart. Sometimes it's the visually being able to see things, especially trends like revenue or expenses. That's a great thing to be able to put in a chart so that you can see what's happening in your organization year over year, right? This one, so you've got your annual, anyway, and you can see where it is budget. The gray is the budget. It's a little hard to see, but you can easily take this. And so by creating the flat file, what's so funny?
Year to date actually is always lower.
It's 0, yeah. Yeah, well, you know, it's funny because this data doesn't have anything in it since, I want to say 2019. Yeah. It's like 2019 forward, we don't have any new data, so probably with whatever my date range was. But you're right, we just kind of bottomed out there. I think we closed, I don't know. But it's really helpful to be able to project that and see that. So by being able to export your reports, again, getting the data you need, you want to be able to export them into a file so then you can manipulate it with pivot tables, you can manipulate it with graphs, all kinds of fun Excel stuff if you know how to do that.
Where did you get that again?
So when you hit the export data, so you got your Excel spreadsheet or CSV file, and then in Excel, when you have it in Excel, there's a chart, and you just highlight the fields you want, and charts, graphs, you can do pie charts or line graphs, like I said, pivot tables, there's all kinds of things you can do once the data's in Excel. And that's, you know, one of the things we're trying to do is work hard to use other tools, right? And so rather than us create these extensive abilities to do that, we've now just created it in Excel so you can use Excel, because Excel does this well. Why would we recreate that when we can just send it there? So that's what we do. All right.
Makes it less expensive too.
It does, and it's more efficient because then it's going to keep up, because you know Excel is going to keep things, you know, they're going to new and improve and do all the things they do, and all we have to do is create a file that they can use. So it makes it pretty easy, because most everybody anymore has Microsoft Office, you know, and it kind of now comes, you can't a la carte anything. It used to be in the day, you had to buy, remember, in the software in the box. And a lot of people didn't have Excel or PowerPoint because it cost more money. They only had Word. And now it all just comes as a bundle. And so everybody has all of those tools to be able to use. So that's why we do what we do.
Office 365.
Yeah, there you go. $10 a month, boom, all the way across. Yeah, I was really mad when I had to do that. I'm like, can I just buy the software and use it? Because I don't use Excel at home. I don't want all that, but now we get all that, so you have to pay for it either way. All right, so how many of you use or have Ledger Report Writer? You do? Do you use it a lot?
Well, I set it up the first time I got it, and that's always stayed the same since then. Because that's the way they wanted the report.
Oh, I see. So you just set up the one report and ran with it.
Right.
Great. That's good. I mean, and what are you reporting on?
Statement of activities.
Okay, so they didn't like the canned one they wanted?
Right, they wanted a little bit different, so.
Right. So that's one thing that's really nice about Ledger Report Writer. Now, a lot of times it's purchased by the diocese because then they can push down some things to you guys through this. But if not, it's a great way for you to create financial reports any way you want to create them. So like you were saying, they didn't like them in whatever order, or something was missing. There was a column missing they were used to seeing. So you got Ledger Report Writer and wrote your report. So you can do statement of activities, statement of financial position, and then also other statement options. What's really nice is you can create a report where you create a statement of activities report and then a statement of financial position, and then you can name it into one report, and then you get them both, which normally you don't get. You know, usually you have to run two reports. This allows you to put the two together. So it's a nice little tool. It is an add-on, but you can build your own report. So you've got here, you've got your row format. So basically it comes with nothing. So it's naked, it's empty, there's nothing there. But you can put in a text field, a column header, a line feed, a page break. You can put in subtotals. So you can take these and subtotal them here and these and here, and then subtotal all of them together. And you're able to go in and create a much more detailed financial statement if you want to. Then you've got your column format. You can do year to date. It's kind of hard to see. So year to date, 2 years ago actual, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So you can build the reports out for multiple years, farther than you can with our canned reports. One of the things recently that we did for another diocese was they wanted to be able to see this row of accounts and then every parish, right? So we were able to build in Ledger Report Writer a report that then they could see each parish and how much each parish had spent on utilities. You know, they could look at it across. You guys wouldn't do that, but you would be able to group things together that maybe aren't alike. You know, sometimes I know in the one church I worked with, they had different overseers, I don't know what they called them, that were in charge of different accounts. Well, the accounts didn't fall in a numerical order where I could just say this chunk for this guy's report and this chunk for this guy's report. You had to, you know, hand pick. So with this, you could say this account, this account, this account, and get your totals, and then pick these three. So it makes it really nice. And if they're happy with it, that's great. But it's another way to get information out differently in a different format, maybe with a different point of view. It just depends on who your audience is and what kind of data. You know, we all get those council people who just, you know, glass over when you talk to them. And then you have other ones that are really into a lot of detail and information. It just depends on what you want. But Ledger Report Writer is a nice little tool. Do you just do the one report with them?
Yep.
Do you guys have anybody that,
Statement of activities. They had certain things they want to group together
Mm-hmm.
when they had the statement of activities printed out.
okay,
Yeah.
so you were able to do that?
Yep.
Cool.
Generic one gives a limited approach, this will give a detail.
You can, yes, yes. It enables you, again, to build it any way you want with internal subtotals, and you could take these 3 subtotals and make one final total and different things like that. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in the program. They do all export in Excel with formatting. So here's one where it's just a real quick, it's 2017, but you've got your account number, which this is the shortcut, account description, year-to-date actual, last year's actual, and then it had some more information down there. And then you could say G&A income total, so income subtotal. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do with it. It can be a little bit of a learning curve. I mean, it's a little bit hard to go in there and build them, but if you start and you get it built and then you get stuck, you can call support and they can help you finish it to get it the way you want it. It's always funny to me though when people use these kind of reports, then they add a new account number and then they get mad it's not on their report. We have to remember you have to come put that account range into the report for it to show up. I know you guys are on a standardized chart, right? Can you put in your own sub-accounts? Yeah, so you could choose to include sub-accounts or use the standard account if you wanted. So it just makes it easier. So any questions? I know you guys have been asking questions.
My general review or remark would be transitioning from CMS to Payables with finance transfer was very smooth.
Good.
It was excellent because I was with the CMS and then
Okay.
Payables bought it, and the account side is good. But I have still a problem with the family suite. And I will be fighting with them with your support group and your program.
So keep in mind one thing with that. CMS was a desktop program. Desktop programs have a whole lot of different ability than web-based programs.
Yeah, that's why even for family suite, I would prefer to go back still. To
Yeah, we wouldn't even support that, yeah.
And especially the problem is for small parishes, we don't need all these, so much of jumbled works, you know.
All the
We need
extra.
simple minimum, but for mission parish, I got only 3 checks, you know. But still, we have 20 families that contribute
Sure.
every week or every other week or whatever. To keep them all tallied, we need a better user-friendly software that keeps track of all the offerings in the database. you know.
So do you use,
Family suite is fine. The offering that you had before was better. Now you bought something, what is that with the E something? That is very, very confusing.
the new offering?
Yeah.
Okay, so remember, it's all different. I'm sorry?
We don't use that, but the woman this morning said the same thing.
Remember what we said in the beginning, that nobody likes change? So here's the thing, Paris,
The same company is transferring from one thing to the other, and you give us an idea of how this functions, and then you change to thing that confuses. If it is progressively improving, it's okay. But if it is confusing, like for example, that they're offering, earlier the desktop version had open, committed, and closed. So if you didn't close it, you can edit anytime.
right, which is a terrible audit. And that's the reason why
No,
you
it
now have
wasn't.
to
It
close
wasn't.
a batch.
The desktop version was very simple.
No, but you can edit that. So here's the thing. One of the things that, 2 reasons we updated the program, and we're working to update everything into what offering looks like, is because the platform that Parasoft is on is old. It's 10 years old. And you all know technology. You buy a computer today and tomorrow it's out. And so you understand we have to update. The reason that your batches have to close before they show up on your reports is for audit purposes. We moved so many parishes over that hadn't closed their batches in 15 years, and they had thousands open in balance, out of balance, not completed, and that's an audit nightmare. It's also ineffective because someone can go in and change the truth. When you close a batch, like Christina said, when it goes to the bank and you close the batch, that's your truth. If there's a mistake, if a check bounces, if they total the cash wrong and you realize the cash is wrong, you need to make another one because that's the truth. And so when the auditor looks at you and goes, you have $3,000 in income, wait, the deposit was $2,900, oh, here's a $100 correction batch that was 3 days later that matches the bank, that matches your bank reconciliation, that matches what in accounting, you're good. But when you don't close things, you're open for fraud. And I can tell you in 20 years experience of working with churches in this aspect with training, I have had so many people in class that were embezzled against and fraud because they used another product for accounting, which I'm not going to use, that starts with Q. I won't name it, because that was not geared for proper business, church, nonprofit accounting. So while yes, there's still 3 steps, the other thing that having the open, review, and closed will do for you, and again, you're a small parish, so it doesn't affect you, but your larger...
When you generate things, it should be for small parishes too, because you have to keep in mind North Dakota, South Dakota, and all these people that are getting less and less. And we don't need too many things and then complicating, And then whatever it is, the parish of desktop version of the database management, I would call that one, now you call Family Suite. It was very easy to change.
And slow as molasses.
The problem with us
Seriously.
it wasn't that difficult as this one is. Yeah, and then we give a reason why you changed and why you changed the
Ours has,
batch
this one has the
why you
same.
changed the amount and whatever.
Sure.
And it was easier. Now, for example, for us, somebody counts, somebody deposits, and then the report comes from the
Bank.
that there was some amount missing or amount is excess or whatever. And then by the time the office staff is gone, and then by the time they come back, it's a big hassle. I still say it is.
Well, but again, it's for audibility and accountability. And as we interviewed, when we built these products, we interviewed a lot of our users, and especially a lot of the diocese, because technically they own everything, right? It's their money. They have the oversight. They wanted more controls, and that's what it does. The other thing that it does is allow you to have your person do the data entry, and then somebody else go in and review it and close the batch. Because you can say that you can't close the batch, you can only do data entry, but only you can close the batch. So again, it's there for your protection and for accountability. So
if you have posted wrongly, you print out a review report, and then you see whether
if it doesn't balance,
50,
right.
And then your balance is not matching, so you view and then you change it. But a lot of times it is 5 days down the road that
Sure.
you get that this was wrongly entered by the people that counted.
Right.
And then it comes from.
Then you need to do a
and then
correction.
it's a big hassle. And then if you don't close it, it doesn't give any report.
Right.
So
Because when it goes to the bank puts in the initial, like I said, $3,000. When they find 2 days later or the next day when they actually count the cash, because usually for big deposits, they just boom, 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 good. They take what you say. Then they make a second transaction for a change. Your books need to match that. That's why we do that. You do a correcting batch, then you have your initial deposit and your correction, because you never want to look like you just did something different. If your batch doesn't match the bank, doesn't match accounting, it's a problem. I've been through a lot of audits. I know they question everything. And so, and maybe your smaller parishes don't do audits, but we
do audit.
okay, so yeah, you want everything to match.
Collection side is matches with the account
Exactly.
side. what is our adult envelope total here matches with the
Right.
attorney's. We do all that.
Right, and you want to make sure the dates match and everything. So that's why we do that. It's because we want it to be above board and accurate. And yeah, for your smaller parishes, it might be harder, but you have the same controls you need at the other ones, so.
Another one I have already reported since time you guys switched over from the offering to, you know, for parishes like that, we need something that says data range contribution. We don't want to see, the present one says how many times you received $25, how many times you received $50. We don't want to see. So and so Mr. X for this year, how much he has given. And then we can report that how many people in your parish are giving only from $1 to $200.
Sure, we have a report for that.
Dollar range, that is not there.
Yeah, there is. In offering, there's a report that you can do a dollar range report.
No, that dollar range report only gives $25, 200 times, $50, 35 times, like that only it is giving. And I complained that one already when you guys increased.
Yep.
And I haven't got the answer yet.
I'm wondering if he's referring to an actual software bug, which has been systemic, where it's been multiplying contributions on the contribution statements. And I just got a fix this morning.
I was going to say, we sent an email out this morning, we fixed that.
There was still like line code written on my PDF report, so I'll have to report that. I will be honest, like, is that just normal? Because it's been, since March from the rollout, and I feel like it's still very glitchy on
I know they fixed it on that. One thing you have to remember too with web-based software is with the update like that, go in and clear your cache and your history in your browser, because when you're doing browser-based software, it will remember, you know, those cookies that we all hate, unless you're eating them. But the browser-based software, you do have to clear that because your computer, for speed, your browsers will bring up whatever happened before. And so sometimes you go in and clear your cache and your cookies, especially after we do an update like that, and we do an update every other week. That's a real good thing to keep things fresh, so it may just be remembering if it was still doing that this morning.
No, it got the contribution right this time, but there's
Okay.
still this wacky line item code in there, so I have to.
Yeah, I don't know what that, I haven't seen that on the one I've been using, so yeah, it may be something, but try clearing that real quick next time before, just to save a little time to see. If it doesn't fix it, definitely call on that, because they want to look at that, you know, and they go in. And again, with software, you know, Microsoft does that. You get an update from Microsoft, something breaks, you get another update, your phone, everything.
We are not against updates.
Yeah, no, I know, and things are going to break
that
things.
we need that was available in the previous one, and it is not available here. That is the problem.
Yeah. Now, we are working on rebuilding the end-of-year statements. They aren't finished. Again, because we have a 2-week iteration, we're doing it in chunks, but the statements are getting greatly improved for this year's statement season, if for lack of a better way to call it. Traditionally, most people send their statements every year, so right now we always have a big push to improve statements and to do things better with them. And so I know that based on what I've seen that, you know, because I'm in the sprint meetings where they tell us what's coming, and they are doing a lot, but it's going to take 2 or 3 updates before we get it finished.
I see so many press releases of updates and everything, but this one has not come yet.
For the,
That dollar range, the previous version had very nicely, so we can easily give to the finance council or the parish, this is our viability. There's only 5 people are giving this much.
Sure.
6 people are giving this much, and then there's majority of the people are giving only from $1 to $200.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a sort of problem for us to see how long we can exist,
Sure.
survive, and all that study was possible with that dollar range, rather than the current dollar range gives only $50, 200 times that one.
one of the other reports, and one of the things we've done with this new offering is we have a lot of new reports, so check the reports out. One of them is a revenue projection, I believe, because that may project it out. It won't break it down, but it may help. I don't know. You know, you could look at that.
That was in the previous version was much better. And that
Yeah.
I don't see it in the new version.
Yeah, well, I know that, I don't know about it not working, because,
I
yeah,
printed out the copy and I sent it to your support group.
yeah.
It's almost 2 years now, or when they
Yeah.
switch to even the online version.
Yeah, well, oh, I see, from what, because we've been on the web version for about 6 years, so you guys were on the desktop, and then, yeah. And they do look at those. We did look at all the enhancement requests for this one, and I know they look at those, because I work with the developer a lot on other things, so. All right, well, our time, you guys want a little bit of time. So what's happening next is we do have Mass at 12:10 in the sanctuary if you want to go to Mass. We will start lunch in here at noon if you want to stay in here and eat lunch. And Christina, about, I want to say 12:50 or 1 o'clock, I think, is going to do the presentation on Pathfinder and then the knowledge base articles, just 10, 15 minutes. And then we'll start our next workshops at 1:10. So one here and one up there. I don't remember what they are. I have the agenda in the back. So if you need to do that. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time. And they really do look at the feedback, because I can tell you I work with on that. So yeah. Thanks, guys.